Last week we looked at the sin of pride, and this week I want to continue looking at the 7 deadly sins, or the 7 capital sins. They're called the capital sins because the other sins in our life all have at their root one of these 7 deadly sins. Now, why are we focusing on sin? It's not an attempt to focus on the rules or the restrictions of the Christian life, but rather the opposite. If we want to be happy, if we want true joy, we have to say no to sin in our life, because sin ultimately makes us unhappy. And true joy comes from living that relationship with God. So it's not about rules or restrictions, but about relationship. So as we continue to look at the deadly sins, I want to look at Paul's letter in 1 Timothy about the root of all sin. Paul says in 1 Timothy, "For the love of money is the root of all evils, and some people in their desire for it have strayed from the faith and have pierced themselves with many pains." Notice when Paul talks about the root of all evils, he doesn't say money is the root of all evils. Money is not evil. He says the love of money, or what we would call the sin of avarice. The sin of avarice is a sin because it's an excessive love of possessions, of money, of things we collect. Why is that a sin? Because those things, whether it's possessions or money or power, the love of those attachments begins to take the place of God in our life. Christ warns us that we can't serve 2 masters. We can't serve God and money. And he says in Matthew 6, not to lay up for ourselves treasures on earth. Why? Because moth and rust, those are going to pass away. But to lay up for ourselves treasures in heaven. He says, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So are we filling our life with things, or are we filling our lives with God? When we look at this week and we look at our lives, are we grasping at things? Are we loving money? Are we overly concerned with our own comfort? Are we resentful because we don't have the money we'd like to have? Or are we generous with others? This week, let's all try to cultivate that virtue of generosity, to give alms, which is one of the calls of Lent, to give money to the poor, to social organizations that help the poor, to our parish, but also to give time. You know, we can be possessive of our own time and our plans. Do we give cheerfully when someday this week, some point, a colleague or a family member will ask for our time? Do we give that generously, as Christ gave his entire life generously? And that's a little theology in 3 minutes. Hey friends, exciting news for you. My very first book is available from Ave Maria Press. It's called Opening the Holy Door, and it's scriptural reflections on the virtue of hope. It's the perfect way to celebrate this Jubilee year, as together we are pilgrims of hope. You can find the link in the description below, or go to joanwatson.faith to order your copy today.